one representative from academia, one representative with, well, actually both academic representatives actually interact a lot with industry, but Pavlos probably much more focused on kind of those interactions, and Kjesrten, who is here to represent the view from industry, if you like, with some of my views as needed. I'll start out by asking, let me stop the share and ask each of the panelists to basically take a minute to talk about kind of your background, to introduce yourself, your current role, your background and how it's relevant to this topic, and what you also think as the start of this panel is the most pressing issue or challenge facing us in creating useful data science training programs. So with that, I'll turn it over. I ask Kjesrten, we can start with you.
All right, excellent. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kjesrten Moody. I am the Chief Data Officer for Prudential Financial. I have been with Prudential since June of this year, so relatively new to the organization. Prior to that was the Chief Data and Analytics Officer for State Farm Insurance, sort of the largest property and casualty insurer in the United States. At both State Farm and in Prudential, I was the inaugural Chief Data and Analytics Officer. So have had the professional privilege of starting up the role in the enterprise function now for two significant organizations. Was recruited into State Farm from a company called Unilever, where I led the information and analytics department globally for Unilever. So was VP for Information and Analytics, which is I have since recognized was really a Chief Data Officer role without the title. So that have kind of been doing data analytics for consumer products and financial services now for the better part of 10 years. So, you know, the most, I think, pressing issue for the creation of qualified data scientists is honestly, it's directing talent into the field to begin with. I think we see very qualified people, although we'll certainly talk about some of the finishing work that we need to do in industry before we have highly qualified independent data scientists working in the team. So excited for that portion of the discussion. But it's the attraction and the recruitment into the field itself is I think something that we also need to be looking at. So, so with that, I'll hand it back over to Usama for next introduction.
Thank you, Kjesrten, and welcome. I'll turn over to Jeanette. Jeanette, same questions. If you can kind of tell us about yourself, your role, your background, how it's relevant to this, and of course, what do you think is the most pressing issue, challenge facing us in training good data science talent?
Thank you, Usama, and welcome everyone. I am Jeanette Wing. I'm the Avanesians Director of the Data Science Institute at Columbia University, which is a university level and university-wide institute. We collaborate with all 18 schools and institutes and colleges at Columbia University. So it's truly highly collaborative and highly multidisciplinary. Before joining Columbia in 2017, I was the corporate vice president of Microsoft Research. So I have had some industry experience. And it is when I was at Microsoft when I saw the rise of data science and data scientists. Before Microsoft, I was at Carnegie Mellon University for almost 3 decades on the faculty as department head of computer science, associate dean for the School of Computer Science, and a regular old faculty member. I also served at the National Science Foundation for 3 years, in charge of all of computer and information science and engineering research, academic research for the country. So I have served government, I have worked in industry, and I have a long career in academia. What I think is one of the challenges in training data scientists today, I think Usama set me up a couple years ago with a similar question, and I have a similar answer, which is I think there's a plethora of data science programs out there, and it's really hard for an individual to know what is a program that's going to train me to be a good data scientist versus what's a program that's just going to give me a certificate, and then I'll go work for Kjesrten and still not know anything. So I think that is a very pragmatic challenge, and I hope that we can discuss that particular topic in the session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and welcome, Jeanette. And finally, last but not least, Pavlos, same questions. You are muted. You need to unmute yourself.
It wasn't allowing me for a minute. He said the host has to unmute me. Okay, so I'm Pablo Protobabas. I am the scientific director for the Institute for Applied Computational Science, an institute which is embedded in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. Our main job is to run the master's program of data science, which is in collaboration with the statistics department and the computer science. Kind of my job is to make sure the curriculum is well defined, finding lecturers, make sure everything is running, all the academic endeavors is on my hands. My background is started as a theoretical physics and astronomer, and I learned data science by necessity. The first thing I had to do is to deal with big data, so I have to deal with how to deal with the messy big data. Then I had to learn how to do statistics. Then I have to learn how to do machine learning because I needed to that. And slowly I became, I guess, a data scientist. So I've been with Harvard for 15 years now, and I'm in the ICS for 8-9 years, so still affiliated with the astronomy department. What I think is the biggest challenge, at least from my perspective, as a person who's trying to put the program together, is that we don't yet have a good track for people to ramp up. We see people jumping into data science from different angles, different fields, without having a good track how to get to become the final or whatever we think is a good endpoint. So that provides a lot of challenges for us for our courses because we have students from very diverse backgrounds. So it will be good to slowly create a curriculum, so how you start, where you go, where do you end up.
Thank you and welcome. So let me shift over to my first question to you all, and we can take it in whatever order you like. So data science training, right? We know it requires some mastery of theory or kind of knowledge of a minimum kind of body of knowledge you have to be functional. You have to have some mastery of tools on the pragmatic knowledge side. And then there's a whole bunch that I label art, which in my opinion is the majority of it, which is how do you actually grow the intuitions to know what is the right data representation, what is the right transformation, how do I try to correct for possible past sins in the data, what are the limitations of the algorithms. You know, I always say to my team, you know, you have to really understand how dumb these algorithms are to kind of be very, very effective. So all of that knowledge, the question to you is, that seems to require kind of an apprenticeship period, a long training period where that data scientist is working with someone who really has mastered data science and is considered a world expert or a very strong expert in the area. And they would learn from her over time, kind of how to, you know, spot the art of it, etc. The question to you is, are we doomed to basically have to always wait for this long apprenticeship period? And what can we do to accelerate the equivalent of that apprenticeship? Is there anything you can think about to kind of figure out how to accelerate it so people come up to speed with the art of it And maybe we'll start with Pavlos for a change, and then Jeanette and Kjesrten.
Well, the first part you said, I think I agree a lot. These three elements, intuition, rigor, and tools, and actually four things, and art all together is key. And I don't think we should forget any of them, especially the rigor. I have a little bit of problem when we forget the rigor and students tend to do dot fit. Let's fit this model and compare it. Kind of drives me a little bit crazy. So at least in our program, we try to emphasize the rigor as a big part. Maybe it is not, maybe the art takes 80, 90% of the time, but I think if you don't do the first two parts, the foundations, you spend more time doing that. So for me, it's very important not to forget that first part, right? So we need to train people that they understand the rigor, they understand the scientific process, and they're keen to do that, not to skip it. Now the apprentice, I think it's necessary because, as you said, there is art here involved, there is the little tools. But I find that the students, especially nowadays, with the plethora of things that are out on the internet, I mean, I find it a remarkable time that any question you have, there is amazing blogs you can read. I think we have an opportunity if we put the foundations that the students can go and find the rest. And even if they are in the apprentice, they can find a lot of information and a lot of excellent material to fill up the gap. So I don't think we're doomed. I think I believe we're in a great shape. I think because this community has been very open and it publishes everything and shows everything there. I think actually, I think we're going to have really good data scientists coming out. So I'm optimistic.
So the accelerator is the internet, in your opinion?
I think the material that are out there is a big factor. And I'm impressed every day how beautiful and nicely things you find on the internet.
Okay, Jeanette?
First, I want to agree with Pavlos on the importance of our role in academia of training students with a rigorous foundation. First of all, it's this kind of stuff that you tend to not want to learn on the job, but it's good to learn so that you can learn anything afterwards on the job. And I think having, basically the mathematical skills, the statistical skills, the computational skills as a foundation is really important and absolutely the role of a rigorous master's in data science program or data science program. However, I completely agree with you, Usama, that apprenticeship is as important because unlike perhaps other disciplines, one cannot really be a practicing data scientist without working with some domain data and understanding the art of figuring out what are the interesting questions to ask, how to evaluate the discoveries that data analytics techniques find. So a typical program, and I would assume Harvard would have something similar, would have, and I know we're going to talk about this later, is some kind of capstone course where, for instance, at Columbia, we work with our industry affiliates who bring real live data to our teams of students and work as mentors with these teams in an apprenticeship mode. It's an experience. It's not the be all and end all, but it's quite eye-opening for the students. The second thing that our program encourages is, of course, an internship in the first summer. And this is another opportunity for students to get their hands dirty with real data and work with usually an industry mentor. So Usama, we can't forget the rigor. And I do think that we will be producing, let's say, trainable and adaptable students for industry as we continue to populate the number of data scientists moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Kjesrten?
All right, so I would very much agree with the comments of both Pavlos and Jeanette and absolutely underscore rigor from the corporate perspective. Data scientists through sort of certificate type programs wouldn't really make it through the pre-screen in an interview. So rigor is absolutely important. But your question is about the acceleration of learning the art. And I think capstone programs, internship programs, the hands-on experience where one is not learning about art, but learning how to create art, right? Learning the actual practice and how your own hand is creating something that will be used in a transformative way in the receiving part of the business or the system. And I think that we would do ourselves a favor if we thought about how we are asking corporates who are hiring interns, who are participating in capstone programs, to think about what their role is in that training. Is your mentor simply a data scientist, for example, right? Or do you have a data scientist mentor? Do you have a business and business strategy mentor? Does your internship include a tour to a risk and compliance department for regulated industries in particular? How are you thinking about the relationship of data science and the data analytics work that you might be doing in relation to corporate IT? That is potentially a very problematic relationship if it is not approached in the right way. And responsible AI is a very interesting and important topic that many businesses are currently wrestling with, and if you're not, that they should be. So having sort of practical experience and contributing to thinking that is currently happening about where self-imposed limits of data analytics may be drawn within the company. I think these are all very important dimensions to what an internship or a capstone program should include. And the corporates need to step up and provide those kinds of experiences into the program so students graduating from an internship program or a program that has a capstone type sponsorship don't just have sort of hands-on experience with data scientists. And, I worked with this data science team and it was awesome. It was great. And I learned so much and I got to, have more public cloud usage than I did in my university or whatever it might be. But it's all of these different dimensions to what actually sort of constitutes being an artist, sort of well-rounded practitioner of the art within the corporate that needs to be brought into bear, I think, into the student experience. Otherwise, you're really starting from zero and when you enter into the corporate world. So, and then that really becomes part of day one type onboarding, right? For people in my team, for example, to say, okay, welcome to financial services. Guess what? We have regulations. And let's start to talk about that, right? So if we talk about acceleration, if you can pull it forward into a more kind of multi-dimensional internship or capstone experience, I think that would be a huge accelerator.
So going a bit deeper, we'll continue with you, Kjesrten, and then go. Capstone, yeah, great idea. That's a semester. That's a project. Probably not long enough, and as Jeanette said, probably not the end-all, be-all. The question here is, what else can we do? Like, how can we enhance this capstone? How, are there ideas on to me, for example, I think about in medicine, you go do a residency for a few years, and that's where you learn most of the art, right? So the question is,
absolutely.
Is something we need here, and how do we do it at scale? So I'll turn it over to you and quick answers.
Yeah. Again, I think it's a reimagining of the corporate relationship to these academic programs, right? Where I think corporates need to step up, have a bit more skin in the game, and work more consistently over a longer period of time. And from the academic perspective, how does that represent training or learnings from a course credits or other type of achievement towards the degree perspective? So it's not just an extra thing that becomes either optional or for extra credit in the job interview process.
Okay, Jeanette?
Okay, I'm glad Kjesrten said revisit the academic industry relationship because I completely agree with that, especially for data science. One idea in terms of revisiting and skin in the game is that a company can sponsor a student And that, you know, so you actually could be a company employee, but it could also just simply be helping to sponsor a student in terms of the program, the tuition, and so on. And then that company would have hands on that student and could, for course credit, work on a project throughout the academic year, not just the summer, not just in the capstone. And it could be a longer term relationship. So that's just one idea, but the basic premise that Kjesrten is suggesting, I think, is spot on, which is we need to revisit these academia industry relationships in the education space.
Perhaps a more serious co-op program or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can take inspiration, not just the copy paste, but inspiration from precisely what does happen in medicine, where there's a very intensive program of study, which is incredibly rigorous. And to graduate from that, you need to have proven your capability and your attention span for the field. But then, you know, you also
but then we are prolonging the program.
Yeah,
potentially, but with higher value output.
Pavlos?
I think we took a little bit different approach on the capstone at Harvard. After talking to a few industry partners and see how the first cohort was going out, instead of trying to make the capstone as an imitation of internship, we're trying to kind of bridge the two. So again, this is the feedback I got from industry. So there's a few things that they said they were really needed. One is how you communicate your ideas to people. They are not data scientists, right? So we make them do a lot of that. The second is how you scope your work. A lot of students we have, they never actually have the experience to say, okay, I have 2 months, I have to do something. Third is how to deal with failure. Again, a lot of our students coming straight from undergrad with no working experience. Once they face failure, they panic. Never in their lives they got anything below A. So when we have the first capstone and we said, okay, the data is not working, you're not getting anything, what are you gonna do, right? So we focus on kind of those things. And of course we work with industry partners, we have a lot of them. And they play the role of mentor, but a lot of the technical mentorship happen within. I think a lot of the students get a lot out of that. I think they get ready for the next step, which is actually doing the work. They do real world problems, but I believe it doesn't substitute the internship, but it's just bridging that gap. Some of our students we've seen, they're not ready to go into the workforce. They don't know how to scope. They don't know how to compromise when they have to. They don't know how to say, well, I have 2 days. What can I do? And as I said, they don't know what it means failure. They're looking for the answer to the homework, which is sometimes very new to them. They never believe that they're going to have a problem to solve, that there's no answer. But that's how real life is, right?
I just want to say that what Pavlos, you said is not specific to data science, but it's common with many engineering
No, absolutely.
students.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
So let me switch over to some of the questions from the audience and then come back. So one question was, another way to frame the question we've been discussing is, what can't you learn on the job?
I think it's often hard. It's often hard to figure out without being basically, told in a formal framework. What are the capabilities and limitations of certain algorithms? Academics tend to like to take a problem, figure out a solution, and generalize both the statement of the problem and the statement of the solution. But there are obvious limitations, whether it's performance limitations or capability, functionality limitations, or what can actually run on your laptop versus what needs to run in the cloud. And so those sorts of things are something that is easily taught in a formal program that might be harder to figure out on the job. But Kjesrten, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, I guess it's theoretically, anything could be learned on the job, assuming that the employer has sufficient patience to
some things are just more
somebody.
efficiently learned in a course.
Exactly. I mean, part of the reason that we love going to high quality programs is that we know you have trained people up in a certain way, and we have trust in the foundation effectively for that we're acquiring in the students that we would hire from these programs. So it's I think theoretically anything would be possible to learn on the job, but ultimately that means I have a cohort coming in each year of data scientists who are not independently functioning at the high levels that I need for, probably for some number of years as they go through that on the job training. So it's really the mathematical and computational foundation that we're looking to have, and the demonstration that the rigor and the rigorous understanding of that is there. So it's not just book learning, but there's sort of the intuitive learning has happened where the mastery of the material can be demonstrated through the interview process.
Pavlos, any comments from you?
A quick one. I agree with everything that Kjesrten said. Is one thing that I found that we're trying to do at my program is, at least when the students go to the workforce, they have a complete picture of the data science. In some ways they have the rigor, but on top of that, I want them to have a complete picture where at work you may end up working on the same problem for 2-3 years and don't realize is something else has happened that can solve this problem easier, right? So this is one, besides the rigor and the things that Kjesrten mentioned, that we're trying to do. It's just, we want the students when they go out there to have the complete picture. So if they need to use neural networks, they know where to find. If there's something else, they know at least exists, they know the basics, and that they can go and apply.
Okay. One of the comments here says it seems like Usama is talking about the equivalent of a postdoc. Yeah, I mean, not quite. Yeah, I would call it some kind of residency of some sort, and you don't need to be a doctor to do it, meaning a postdoc, but it could be like post undergrad experience of residency that kind of qualifies you is one great idea. I also like the idea brought up around. There's a few more comments here. It looks like people actually agree with how you tackle this question of what can't be learned on the job. Let me shift over to another question here that I have. How do you see the data science training / education offerings evolve? What's the perspective on the variety of programs from undergraduate degrees to boot camps? Like, what's your opinion? I know, Jeanette, and maybe you can start out because that was one of your complaints. Plethora of program, confusing landscape. What the heck should I learn? Where the heck should I learn it? What do you see and what should we do about it?
Well, first of all, I want to say that this is not a new problem either. I think computer science also had this problem in the very beginning where, perhaps still with boot camps and coding camps and, learn how to code in a week sort of thing. But one thing that I wanted to bring to the attention of this audience is an organization called the Academic Data Science Alliance. This is something that I kickstarted in March 2018, where we, through NSF support, the Sloan Foundation support, and with the Moore Foundation support, I held a workshop with about 65 academics coming from 29 different universities who run different data science entities like centers or institutes. And we agreed that we needed to share best practices and especially, start creating some sense of what is the common curriculum, say at the master's level, what do we think about the undergraduate level, and we even talked about PhD programs. In any case, the Academic Data Science Alliance has really blossomed, and it's a nonprofit organization. They have annual meetings, and more universities are participating. And it's through that kind of organization where I believe, I would say, academic standards for what goes into a rigorous, let's say, master's program, because that's usually the level people are talking about, which will shake out. Short of a professional organization for the field, and we don't have such a thing, I think this is an organization that will self-regulate, if you will. Now, I actually don't know, I don't know, I don't have an opinion yet about undergraduate majors in data science. We have one at Columbia, which is really the Union of Statistics and Computer Science. I know many other universities have undergraduate programs. I actually just don't have an opinion yet because I haven't looked into those curricula yet. And so I absolutely believe that short training programs like boot camps and so on are helpful and useful and target certain audiences. And I think that they enhance a kind of learning that certain audience can use and use effectively. I still absolutely, of course, believe in a longer, rigorous, like master's level program for truly a full training for someone who might go work for Kjesrten. I don't think a boot camp is enough for Kjesrten.
No, not at all. I mean, let's just be really candid about what we're doing here. We are using data science to embed algorithms that transform the way companies serve their customers, manage their brand, and ultimately set themselves up to be more competitive, in the near future, sort of in this digital age, if you'll excuse me for even using that expression. And I don't want somebody who has been rushed in learning the techniques, in learning the tools, in practicing the rigor. So it's a little bit of just right. As soon as you're ready, I want you. But if you're still a bit green, you're actually a bit dangerous in terms of the type of mandate that I have for the skill set, relative to the readiness and the maturity to be competent.
Sorry to interrupt, but from what you see today in terms of these training programs out there, any patterns that are interesting, promising, or worrisome?
So I'll be honest, personally, and with the companies that I've worked for and influenced where we go, we tend to go to the top degree programs. So in order to mitigate the risk of worrisome patterns. So utmost respect for Columbia and Harvard, for example, Carnegie Mellon. We're really University of Illinois in Champaign, where we understand the programs and we are able to work to build that corporate relationship to potentially influence things like internships, potentially elective courses, and so forth. So we're picky on the inbound side, if you will, in order that we can sort of risk mitigate against some of the more casual or less rigorous programs that might be out there.
Well, I may take a little bit of a different point of view here. Is like they're also, I've been looking at all these programs and I see what they do, and I see academic programs there not so good either. So just to say that there's not all academic programs are rigorous and good. Some of them, they say, well, we have a bunch of computer science courses, pick 5 of them or 8 of them, and you have a master's program in data science. We just rename it. And I've seen some very innovative things that are coming from, Fast AI or Lambda schools or these things that they're coming out. So I personally see what they're doing, and I find some of them being fascinating and innovative the way they teach, and I borrow from them or kind of see. So boot camps boot camps, I agree, they're too short and they don't do that, but there's maybe a need for that for not, you know, if the industry needs people with few skills that they can get working, I think the industry will absorb them, so there will be a need for that.
I've had, I mean, I'll just sharing experience. I've had pretty bad experiences with bootcamp graduates in terms of quality, and I've sampled many bootcamps. Actually, I'll focus on another trend, which is meetups, right? So Jeanette mentioned that these meetups could be helpful. I actually have found meetups to be a very
I didn't mention anything about meetups, Usama.
Nice try.
I actually don't even know what a meetup is.
So meetups is an even scarier notion. So I will tell you, I have spoken at many meetups in the Bay Area, in Salt Lake City, where I was building a team for a couple of years, in New York area, in a couple of other areas, also internationally. So meetups are these groups. Some are very large. I'll tell you, in the Bay Area, for example, one of the groups is about 14,000 members.
Wow.
Another one is about 8,000. A third one, which is actually an ACM chapter, is about 3,000. So a meetup is basically people who kind of organize talks. And a lot of the industry practitioners who are trying to learn data science, they go to these meetups. And what you said is extremely indicative and very worrisome to me, which is, you know, I speak at them, but I'm not academic, right? But in none of these meetups do we ever see any academicians. So I keep, like, I'm horrified at the notion that we have these tens of, well, hundreds of thousands, literally, of people who are actually learning data science and practices and all that from forums where academia is almost completely excluded and not even tuning in and not even aware that they exist. So I would love your commentary on this, both from you and Pavlos from the academic side, and of course from Kjesrten's industry side.
Well, I'll say again that this is the, of course, when I saw your questions, I said, I don't even know what a meetup is. It sounds like maybe it's just a conference, but it's perhaps simply a way for the audience members to be exposed to what data science is and what it can do. But it's hardly a way to learn what data science, to learn data science where you could go back to your job and practice it. So Usama, maybe there should be more cross conversation between the people who speak and participate in meetups and the academic community, because, you know, I do feel that there's a need that I hear a lot from executives with companies I work with who want to know how to incorporate data science in their companies. They know they need to do something. They just don't know quite what data science is, and therefore the kinds of people they should be hiring or the retraining that their current employees need to have. So they do, and these are high-level executives, so they do need some kind of high-level understanding of what data science is. I don't know whether meetups are that, but that I do see that there's a need for that in companies that I talk to.
I've been to few meetups, not so many, and I use them for the other way around. That's for me to have an idea what people are talking in industry, what they're interested. I have never been to the meetup to teach anything, to be honest. I mean, I gave 5 minutes talk about the program or something like that. But I found some of them extremely informative from my perspective to know. I was in New York before the COVID on a meetup just to see what people are interested, what they're talking about, what is the current trends in the industry. So, but maybe you're right. Maybe we should participate more. But so far, I've been using it the other way around. Not me telling them, but them telling me what they're interested, what are their needs and things like that.
Yeah. So I'll admit I've not been to a meetup myself. I think I've sort of thought about it from Jeanette's perspective as a way to introduce sort of non-data scientists to the field, So my personal experience with meetups, however, has been that sort of junior or mid-level data scientists in my team have been the organizers of meetups, and we have hosted them in our offices. And I have found meetups to actually be a very good development experience from that perspective of having a practitioner need to organize, need to speak to a large group of people, need to share in an understandable way, potentially a complicated topic. And those are very good skills to develop in needing to work within a corporate environment where most of your colleagues and certainly key sponsors and stakeholders are very likely not as embedded in the field as you are. So personally, I have been very supportive of them from the development perspective as a host within the team. And we've tried to provide content that isn't overly shallow or overly revealing. And we use that also as a way to help build the brand as an employer where interesting work in a supportive environment is happening. So, so I think, you know, we've used meetups maybe a little bit sort of differently from that perspective. So, but I haven't, I don't ask people in an interview process, you know, and how many meetups have you gone to? You know, that's really not something that comes up.
So there were a couple of questions. Let me turn to the audience questions. One question from Abhishek here saying, what are your thoughts on things like Coursera courses, like Andrew Ng's machine learning and deep learning series, etc.? So what's your views on Coursera?
I think those courses are fantastic, no doubt about it. As I said before, there are other approaches that are coming out as, like I was mentioning Fast AI, they take the approach, let's just implement right away. I'm not sure if I'm a believer, but I think it's an interesting approach. Those are very good courses. I recommend them to everybody. But again, remember, to get a complete picture, to get the complete education, you're going to have to enhance it or do something more than that. We get often many students that before they enroll to our program, they take Coursera or something. And I found the students that took these courses are well prepared for the other courses we offer. So
online course?
complete it if you start it. That's yeah, I'll just agree with what Pablo said. I think there's some courses like Andrew Ng's course that are excellent. You know, there are probably some courses that are not as good. But I also agree with what Pablo said, to get a whole program, I mean, to really get exposure to all of data science, not just machine learning, you really need to be in a whole program.
I would echo that.
Another question, this one is from Keith McCormick, who just gave a talk with Hamid on their survey study. He's saying, quite a few survey respondents were doing a degree, i.e. at a university, and a bootcamp, or other combinations. What does the panel think about that? And why do you think they are tempted to use 2 or more training options?
I don't know, actually. Do you know what sequence they do that?
This is at the same time. So while they're taking
time,
they're actually, you know, attending a bootcamp.
I have to say, I never had a student that did this. I've seen a couple of students that after they graduate, they may do a bootcamp because they help them to find jobs. But that's so I don't know, to be totally frank here.
Another question from the audience: What role do degree program faculty have in shaping practical and ethical standards in data science and analytics? I.e., how much does Kjesrten's job board influence, job board influence your curriculum?
So I want to state upfront that I have been promoting what Columbia's tagline for the Data Science Institute, Data for Good. Data to do good for society in terms of societal grand challenges like healthcare and climate and social justice, but also using data in a good manner. And I want to go back to what Kjesrten mentioned, responsible AI. And this is where I emphasize the importance of data ethics and data privacy from the very beginning. Now, we cover, it's hard to add more stuff to a curriculum. So we cover a lot of these ethical issues through our capstone course, where people are actually working with real data. And again, the companies come to us and we start talking about the ethical issues of collecting the data, analyzing the data, telling stories about people through their data, and so on. But I think this is actually quite new for the academic data science community, and we are trying to figure it out. But we all agree that data ethics is very important to teach our students from day one.
And I will totally agree. At Harvard now we have a required course in critical thinking and data ethics. It's a required course. All of them have to take it. In addition to that, I think it's not just one course. I think that would not do fair job. So we start to embed it in all of our courses. We have one week that address these kind of issues in different ways. My favorite one is one of my first homework. I asked the students to download data and nobody reads the agreement, the license, and they all download it because they can. And I said, hey, have you read the, anyway, so I think the other part is to train ourselves. I believe that I'm personally learning these issues as we go. We're getting better and we're more aware. So I don't think it's just one course or one thing. It's a process. And I think we all agree on that. And we're slowly getting better, hopefully not so too slowly into that.
So we have about 8 minutes left on the panel. I have some wrap-up thoughts to kind of ask the panelists. But before that, I want to encourage the audience. Please pop a question into the Zoom chat if you want me to take your questions. This is the portion of the panel where I'd love to prioritize absolutely the questions. But pending that, I'll run a quick exercise. So first with Jeannette and Pavlos as representatives of academia, I would ask you, what do you think employers are looking for in a data science position candidate? So I want to get your view, and then I'm going to turn around and ask the big employer over there. Kjesrten, what's your view?
You go ahead, Jeannette.
Okay, well, I want to tell you, Usama, I did a little homework on exactly this question, and I asked our career development staff person to tell me, what are employers looking for? So he gave me some wonderful answers that I will share with you because hopefully they overlap with what Kjesrten is looking for. The first and foremost that he said is fit into a team environment. And there are really two important words. One is fit, and the other is team. So of course, team means collaboration and working with others. And that's something that, for instance, our students learn in the capstone course and of course on the internships and also doing projects together. But fit is something quite specific to a company. And so in fact, many of our students might have three or four interviews, or many companies might interview 3 or 4 students because they're looking for someone who will actually fit into the culture of the company. And this I very much understand, having been at Microsoft and being in different cultures when Satya Nadella took over after Steve Ballmer. The other is, of course, experience with programming languages and tools and statistical methods and so on. The third is trainability. So I'm sure Kjesrten would appreciate that. The fourth is communication skills. I think Pavlos mentioned that, or others mentioned that. And the bottom line is, can this person add value to my team right away?
Before we turn to Kjesrten to judge, Pavlos?
I found 2 types of employers. The ones they want everything. They want a person who is a good programmer, but the bottom line is there's one type of employer that is looking for a person who appreciates the thinking process, the approach to the problem. And then there's the other type, they're looking for a specific person and they have to fit it. You know, someone who knows AWS and I don't know, blah, blah, blah. I think we're more training more as the first category of employers, which I think Jeanette covered everything more than I thought before, so thank you. But one of the things I've seen a lot is can they manage adversarial data situations? That's one thing that I've seen common. You can send a student that is very good in everything, but he cannot handle some situation. The data are not where they're supposed to do. So that was one of the keys I got by, again, talking to some employers.
I assume you mean adversarial data as in like problems with the data, not adversarial IT team that's trying to block you.
No, the former, of course, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Kjesrten, what do you think? Are you looking for certain things that our academic panelists have missed?
Yeah, well, those are very good answers. Very good answers. So I think, we're looking at the hard skills. So what is the limit of knowledge coming out of the program? That helps us understand what type of skill development investments we need to make over the first 6 to 12 months. We are absolutely looking at cultural fit into the team, so the ability to work in the team, the ability to have fun, right? It's hard work and you need to enjoy it. So is this somebody who is not only a strong contributor, but an elevator, somebody who elevates the team? We're also looking for affinity into the corporate mission and purpose. So will the individual have an affinity to the work itself? And I think that's a very important probative set of questions and observations during an interview process, because it speaks quite a bit to retention and just how long an individual may stay with the company, given the affinity for the underlying work. And then we're looking for people who are hungry for learning. This is a rapidly changing space. If we are looking at sort of the full realization of the transformative power of data analytics within the corporate world, it's destined to become stale with your skills. So somebody who will self-promote their learning, engage, challenge us to be better, and stay while doing all of that.
Stay is a very, very hard time.
It really is, but I think interesting, purpose-driven work in a collegial, collaborative environment with measurable, observable, positive business benefits is an attractive retention package.
One line for the following question.
Okay.
What would you say to candidates as they apply for a job? What's the one sentence you would say to that candidate?
Show both your expertise and passion for data science.
Pavlos?
I was going to say, show your passion too, and don't fake it.
Don't fake it. Kjesrten, what would you say to a candidate applying to a job? Oh, you're...
How do you define your individual mission and purpose, and how does that match to my company's mission and purpose?
What would you say to people designing training programs in academia, Kjesrten?
Show me your soft skill development.
Pavlos, what would you say to people in academia?
I say, don't forget all the 4 things that Usama said at the beginning.
That's great advice. Pablo? Sorry, Jeanette?
I'll say what Pablo said.
That's cheating.
Okay, I would actually say this. If you're designing an academic training program, a training program in data science in academia, don't, I would say, don't sell short the rigor behind data science.
Somebody aspiring to be a data scientist, where should they start? What is the one sentence you would say to them? Kjesrten.
Do you have a data science mentor? Okay. And if not, let me help you find one to explore.
Pavlos?
I'm a good answer. I would say it's a journey. It's going to keep learning. doesn't matter where you start, as long as you start and keep going, keep plugging it in. There's a lot of things out there.
Jeanette, you get the last sentence.
I'd say, do you have an interesting data set that you'd like to answer some question?
Okay.
Start with the data.
So, thank you all for taking the time. Thank you for answering the audience questions. We will be following up on social media with kind of summaries, blogs, and thoughts, and we'll write up some of these things. And of course, we'll turn them into action items in the final discussion session.